When the U.S. military projects force beyond its borders against cartels, the consequences are immediate, visible, and deeply disruptive. These operations are not abstract exercises. They strike at the very arteries of cartel power, the supply chains, leadership networks, and financial flows that sustain their empire. Every interdiction at sea, every raid on a logistics hub, every strike on a command center sends shockwaves through organizations built on the illusion of invulnerability. The impact is twofold. Externally, shipments are blocked and revenue streams collapse. Internally, morale cracks, loyalty falters, and the myth of control begins to dissolve. The moment U.S. forces began operating outside national borders, the fight against cartels shifted dramatically. What was once treated as a law enforcement issue had escalated into a national security threat. Cartels, acting like insurgents, wielded military-grade weapons, controlled territory, and fueled violence that spilled across the border. The decision to deploy military power was a recognition that traditional police action was no longer enough. The trigger for this change was the Trump administration's designation of major drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs. This designation elevated their status to be on par with groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS and opened the door for the U.S. military to treat cartel activity as a direct threat to national security. Cartels had forced this escalation by operating like paramilitary organizations with convoys of armored trucks, heavy weaponry, and even weaponized drones. When their firepower rivals that of national armies, waiting for shipments to cross the border is a losing strategy. The legal and political framework for these operations is a deliberate blend of counterterrorism law, presidential authority, and international legal nuances. The FTO designation reframed cartels from criminal enterprises into terrorist actors, providing the legal scaffolding for military force under the same rationale used to hunt groups like Al-Qaeda. The cartel pipeline, in this logic, became no different than a terrorist safe haven. The Trump administration further cemented this approach with a secret directive to the Pentagon to prepare for military operations against cartels, using broad executive powers tied to national security emergencies to bypass lengthy legislative battles. On the seas, U.S. actions are legally sound, as international maritime law permits the interdiction of unflagged vessels or those engaged in drug trafficking. A cartel boat in the Caribbean or Pacific is a legitimate military target. The challenge comes on foreign soil, where conducting unilateral strikes inside a country like Mexico without government consent could be a major breach of international law. This is where the tension is most apparent. What is operationally possible may not be diplomatically defensible. The U.S. is walking a legal tightrope, yet the strategic rationale is forceful. U.S. leaders frame cartels as an existential threat to national security, justifying military involvement as a necessary counter to entities capable of destabilizing nations and fueling the overdose crisis, killing tens of thousands of Americans annually.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The shift to overseas operations carried enormous stakes, risking diplomatic fallout with Latin American governments. But proponents argued that the stakes of inaction were far greater. The calculation was blunt. Better to face controversy abroad than funerals at home. This urgency drove the administration to accept the risks of deploying forces into volatile environments. The military campaign took shape in two key arenas: Latin America as the production zone and the Caribbean as the primary transit corridor. U.S. forces deployed naval assets, aircraft, and special operations teams to intercept drug convoys at sea, raid storage sites, and capture or kill cartel operatives. The tactical reality was clear. Cutting off drugs before they reached Mexico's northern border was more efficient than trying to stop them in Texas or Arizona. Each interdicted shipment meant thousands of doses never touched U.S. soil. This approach echoes counterterrorism campaigns in the Middle East. High-value targets, regional commanders, logistics coordinators, and financiers became priorities. Removing them weakens not just one operation, but entire corridors of smuggling, accelerating the inherent instability, paranoia, and power struggles that thrive within cartel leadership. This isn't just about kinetic strikes, it's about a two-front war. Military intelligence and Treasury Department investigators work in tandem to identify cartel cash flows and freeze assets, strangling their financial arteries, while operations on the ground disrupt physical supply chains. The intelligence sharing protocols that drive these missions are a tightly woven network of real-time intelligence shared across U.S. law enforcement, the military, and international allies. The system is powered by expanded counterterrorism authorities and fused command structures, turning mountains of data into precise, actionable missions. The flagship is the Joint Interagency Task Force South, or JIATFS, where intelligence from satellites, surveillance aircraft, Coast Guard patrols, military reconnaissance, and law enforcement investigations is merged into a single operational picture. The cartel can no longer hide in Mexico while its money moves in Miami. All the pieces are visible to one network team. The legal foundation for this integration came through the designation of cartels as FTOs. This allowed federal agencies to apply counterterrorism authorities directly against cartels, fusing Title 10 military authorities and Title 21 drug enforcement authorities in practice. This means DEA agents can coordinate directly with special operations units, enabling operations where DEA investigators, U.S. Marines, and host nation soldiers storm cartel compounds side by side, all acting on the same intelligence feed. The trafficker's advantage of slow, siloed communication has been replaced by a loop so tight that missions unfold at the speed of their movements. This integration extends beyond U.S. borders, with regional allies embedded in multinational intelligence fusion centers. The days when traffickers could exploit jurisdictional gaps between nations are disappearing, replaced by a wall of shared intelligence that stretches across the hemisphere. Elite U.S. military units are no longer confined to conventional battlefields. Today, Marines, Special Forces, and Navy SEAL teams are being deployed in precise, intelligence-driven campaigns to dismantle the command structures of transnational criminal organizations. The strategy is clear. Take the fight directly to the leaders, shatter their networks at the source, and deny them the protection geography once afforded them. Every raid and interception begins with data from satellites, drones, and human intelligence, creating a targeting picture so detailed that units can strike with surgical precision. This is how a mountain, once a cartel's shield, becomes a monument to its miscalculation.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The U.S. military's posture is built around speed and flexibility, with amphibious ships and marine expeditionary units serving as floating strike forces ready to project power. This maritime and aerial footprint makes geography irrelevant. Once on the ground, precision raids are timed to maximize surprise, with teams inserting, striking, and withdrawing before cartel reinforcements can mount meaningful resistance. The goal is disruption of command and control. By striking leadership nodes and communication hubs, U.S. units fracture the chain of command. Every disrupted call and dismantled hub weakens the cartel's ability to coordinate shipments or enforce loyalty. The confidence they once placed in layers of reinforced concrete was nothing more than a flimsy curtain before the storm. Cross-border operations are fought with a combined arsenal of sea, air, land, and cyber elements. At sea, naval vessels like amphibious assault ships and littoral combat ships form the backbone of operational presence, choking off maritime smuggling lanes. Above the waves, MH-60 Seahawk helicopters serve as the eyes and claws of naval strike groups, and unmanned aerial vehicles provide persistence that manned aircraft cannot match. Even beneath the surface, the fight continues, with nuclear-powered attack submarines monitoring maritime routes undetected. Their sophisticated radar, tuned to detect the known, was deaf to the inevitable. The glue that binds these operations is technology. Satellite links allow commanders to coordinate in real time, while signals intelligence intercepts cartel communications and electronic warfare systems jam their radios. This technological blanket turns the cartel's reliance on secrecy into a weakness. What took them years to bury took seconds to exhume. The ISR network. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance weaves all these assets together into a single operating picture, removing guesswork and turning the chaos of cartel operations into a map of vulnerabilities. The most visible effect of these operations is the disruption of supply chains. Cartels thrive on reliable movement, but a single lost shipment can represent tens of millions in revenue. When these interdictions multiply, cartels are forced to reroute, delay, and fragment their operations, slowing the entire machine. The operational drag is a cancer on their organization. Alongside logistics disruption comes leadership decapitation. When leaders are killed or captured, the organization experiences a vacuum and decision-making fractures. Mid-level lieutenants often turn on each other in violent contests for power. For the cartels, leadership decapitation is a psychological wound, signaling that no rank, no fortress, and no territory is beyond the reach of U.S. force. This is followed by the forced adoption of increased security measures, which come at an enormous cost and drain resources. Pressure forces them into unsustainable habits. Beyond the logistics and adaptations lies the human dimension. Morale impact. Sustained military action shatters the perception of invulnerability. Foot soldiers begin to doubt whether leadership can actually shield them from capture or death. When U.S. operations erode this belief, they weaken the glue that holds the organization together. The military also applies economic pressure. Every interdicted shipment represents not just lost drugs, but lost profit. And every additional layer of secrecy requires more bribes and manpower. When money dries up, loyalty collapses even faster than under military fire. The campaign is not measured in single seizures, but in the systematic dismantling of organized narco-warfare. It targets the very infrastructure, leadership, and warfighting capacity that allow cartels to function as insurgent powers. The new approach goes straight for the jugular. A lost shipment is an inconvenience. A dismantled command network is survival itself slipping away. By using military-grade tactics and resources, the U.S. sends a message. You will be fought as the paramilitary organizations you are. By designating cartels as FTOs, the U.S. reframes the conflict, justifying broader intelligence gathering, expanded financial sanctions, and sustained campaigns designed to systematically weaken an enemy's warfighting ability. Cartel leaders are no longer drug lords hiding behind criminal defense. They are terrorist leaders marked for elimination. The campaign's scope is transnational, mirroring the cartel's own reach and leaving them with no safe havens. The U.S. is no longer content to play defense. This is a theater-wide campaign, and their warfighting infrastructure, once global, now faces a global assault. The integration of military forces, federal law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and international partners eliminates one of the cartel's greatest historical advantages: jurisdictional seams. In their place stands a coordinated web of enforcement, financial tracking, intelligence fusion, and military capability. Cartels now face not fragmented opposition, but a single, coordinated, multi-domain assault. The immediate effect is disruption of their warfighting capacity. The goal is long-term degradation. This is a campaign of attrition and dismantling. The storm does not pass. It stays, it grows, and it does not stop. Cartels are learning that no border can protect them, no encrypted phone can shield them, and no laundered dollar can escape detection when intelligence flows this seamlessly. They fired first. We simply ensured they wouldn't fire again. The final insight is sobering. The legal and strategic frameworks enabling U.S. military operations against cartels are less about clear authority and more about layered justification. Each piece covers the gaps left by the others, creating a patchwork that is just sturdy enough to act, but fragile enough to collapse under scrutiny. This is law as a shield and a sword, deployed to confront enemies that operate outside the boundaries of law themselves. The battle is not just about firepower, it is about legitimacy. The frameworks allow action, but they do not resolve the fundamental tension between security and sovereignty. They simply buy time for a nation unwilling to stand still while cartels poison its people.